Welcome to Rooted in Reasoned podcast, where faith meets thoughtful inquiry. So glad you could join us for this final episode in our series, tackling the age-old question, does God exist?
Yeah, it's been quite the journey, hasn't it?
It really has. I mean, we've explored so much cosmological arguments, fine-tuning of the universe, even personal experiences.
We've looked at evidence, different perspectives, really tried to wrestle with this question from all angles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But for this final episode, we're shifting gears just a bit. Let's say, just for the sake of argument, we accept the idea that God does exist.
Right. We're moving beyond the weather to a question that's just as profound. Can we actually know God? And I'm not talking about like knowing facts about him.
Right, not just knowing about him.
But truly knowing him personally, like in a relationship.
Okay, now we're getting to the heart of it. This is something I think a lot of us, especially as teens, really wrestle with. I mean, we're trying to figure out who we are, what we believe.
Yeah.
And it's natural to wonder, is a relationship with God even possible? Like, we're talking about the creator of the universe.
Exactly. And right off the bat, we bump into this seeming paradox. How can God be both infinite and personal? It's like, how can something be bigger than the universe and still care about me?
That's what I'm talking about. Those two ideas just seem worlds apart. Like, on the one hand, we've got this concept of God as infinite, eternal, existing beyond time and space, all-powerful.
Almost like trying to imagine someone playing a video game that they created, existing outside of the game's limitations, but still interacting with the characters inside.
Okay, I kind of get that. So God is like the ultimate game developer.
Yeah.
But then how is he personal at the same time?
That's where it gets even more fascinating. The material emphasizes that while God is infinitely beyond our grasp, he also possesses qualities that we recognize as personal: a mind, emotions, will, and moral agency.
Hold up. So you're saying God thinks, feels, chooses, even has a sense of right and wrong.
Exactly, and not in some distant, detached way. He engages with his creation, he cares, he loves. The Bible even uses the analogy of a father's love to describe God's heart for humanity.
Wow, that's powerful. But doesn't that raise a whole bunch of other questions, like, if God is so loving, why is there so much pain and suffering in the world?
That's a huge question, and one that we'll definitely explore as we go deeper. But for now, let's stick with this idea of God being both infinite and personal. Because it's this combination, this paradox, that opens up the possibility of a real, meaningful relationship with him.
Okay, I'm starting to see that. But there's still this thing nagging at me. Even if God wants to be personal with us, there's got to be something that keeps us apart, right? Like, I know I mess up all the time. I make bad choices. I hurt others, even when I don't mean to.
You're hitting on something that's central to the Christian faith: the concept of sin. And it's not just about the big sins we hear about. We were created to hit the bullseye, but our actions and thoughts often veer off course.
So even small things like lying to a friend or being selfish create this distance between us and God.
Exactly. Romans chapter 1, verses 20 to 21 puts it this way: For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him, but their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened.
Okay, that's pretty intense. It's like deep down we all know there's a God, but we often choose to ignore him or push him away.
That's a common human experience. We try to go our own way, do our own thing, and in the process, we create this separation between ourselves and the God who created us and loves us. It's like that awkward feeling you get when you've wronged a friend and you know things just aren't right between you.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. But where do we go from there? Like, how do we bridge that gap?
Well, here's where the Christian faith offers a radical solution. And it all centers on the person of Jesus.
Okay, bring on the Jesus talk.
Yeah.
I'm ready to hear more about this.
It's kind of like that feeling of awkwardness when you've wronged a friend. That sense of distance, of things not being right, almost like an invisible wall goes up.
Totally. It's like you can't fully connect until things are made right. But how does that relate to Jesus? I'm still a bit fuzzy on that.
Well, the Christian faith claims that Jesus is not just another historical figure. He's God himself, who became human, lived a perfect life, and then willingly died on the cross.
Okay, I've heard that before. But honestly, the whole idea of God dying on a cross sounds kind of strange to me. What's that all about?
It's a concept that has challenged and inspired people for centuries. One of the key ideas is that Jesus' death on the cross was a sacrifice, a way to pay the penalty for our sins, to bridge that gap we were talking about.
Wait, so you're saying that Jesus took the punishment for all the stuff we've done wrong, even like the little white lies and the times I've been selfish?
That's the heart of the Christian message. One source even uses this powerful image of a great exchange happening on the cross. Jesus, who is completely innocent, took on the weight of our sin, our guilt, our brokenness, so that we could be forgiven and reconciled to God.
Whoa, that's heavy stuff. But how does that actually work? I mean, how can someone else's death, even Jesus's death, actually change things for me?
It's definitely a concept that goes beyond our human logic, but the sources suggest that Jesus' death satisfied the demands of God's justice. You see, God is perfectly holy and just, so sin can't just be ignored or brushed aside. There has to be a reckoning, a payment for the wrong that has been done.
So it's like a cosmic balancing of the scales, like someone has to pay the price.
That's one way to think about it. But here's the really mind-blowing part. Jesus didn't stay dead. He rose from the grave, conquering death itself. And it's his resurrection that gives us hope and the promise of new life.
Okay, resurrection. Now you're really pushing my limits of understanding. I'm going to need you to break that down for me.
Think of it this way. Jesus' resurrection wasn't just a miraculous event. It was a declaration of victory over sin and death. It means that the power that held humanity captive has been broken, and we can now experience freedom and new life in a relationship with God.
So it's like Jesus not only took the punishment for our sins, but he also blew open the door to a whole new way of living.
Exactly. But here's the catch. It's not automatic. It's not like everyone automatically benefits from Jesus' sacrifice.
There's got to be a catch, right?
So what do we have to do? The sources emphasize that knowing God personally requires a response on our part. It's not just about believing certain facts about Jesus. It's about trusting him, surrendering our lives to him, and allowing him to be the Lord of our lives.
Okay, I've heard about this whole accepting Jesus thing, but to be honest, it's always sounded kind of cheesy to me. Like, what does that even mean in real life?
It's more than just saying a prayer or going through some ritual. It's a heart-level decision to turn toward God, to acknowledge our need for him, and to allow him to transform us from the inside out.
So it's not just believing that Jesus existed or did all these cool things. It's about believing in him, like putting your trust in him.
That's a great way to put it. Think about it like this. Imagine you meet someone amazing, someone you really admire and respect. Just knowing their name or some facts about them doesn't make them your friend. You have to choose to invest in the relationship, to spend time with them, to share your life with them.
Okay, so knowing God is kind of like building a friendship. It's about more than just head knowledge. It's about a real two-way relationship.
You got it. And just like a real friendship, knowing God takes effort, communication, and a willingness to let him into the messy parts of our lives.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I still have this question. If this whole God thing is real, if he's really that good and loving, why is there so much bad stuff happening in the world? I mean, I see it every day. War, poverty, people getting sick and dying. It's hard to wrap my head around that.
That's a question that has haunted humanity for centuries.
Yeah.
And it's something that many people, especially young people, wrestle with.
For sure.
It's natural to question God's goodness when we see so much pain and suffering.
So, is there an answer?
While there are no easy answers, they do offer some important insights. First and foremost, they remind us that God is not the author of evil. He hates it just as much as we do. But for reasons that are ultimately beyond our full understanding, he allows it to exist in our world.
Okay, but that's tough to swallow. Like, if God has the power to stop bad things, why doesn't he?
That's where faith comes in. It's not about having all the answers, but about trusting God even when we don't understand everything. It's like trusting a parent, even when we don't get why they make certain rules or allow us to go through difficult experiences.
So you're saying that even though we don't always get it, there could be a bigger purpose behind the pain and suffering.
God can use even the most difficult experiences to shape our character, to deepen our faith, and to draw us closer to him. Think of it like an athlete who goes through intense training. It's painful and challenging in the moment, but it ultimately makes them stronger and more resilient.
Okay, I can see that. But doesn't that make God seem kind of harsh? Like, he's putting us through tough stuff just to make us tougher.
It's not about God being harsh or punishing us. He is with us in our suffering. He cares deeply about our pain. He wants to use it for our ultimate good.
So even in the midst of bad stuff, God is there. He's not just watching from a distance.
Exactly. The Bible talks about God being close to the brokenhearted and that he binds up their wounds. He doesn't promise that life will be easy or pain-free, but he does promise to be with us every step of the way.
Wow, that's actually really comforting.
Yeah.
But I still struggle with those people who seem to go through so much pain and suffering. Like, where is God in those situations?
That's a deeply personal question, and there's no one-size-fits-all answer. It's about remembering that even though we don't always understand why bad things happen, God is still good, he still loves us, and he's still working all things together for good for those who love him.
As we've been talking about all this, those verses from Romans chapter 1 keep coming back to me, especially the part about people seeing evidence of God in creation, but choosing to ignore or reject him.
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? Makes you wonder, what does it really look like to choose to know God, to embrace that personal relationship we've been talking about?
That's exactly what I'm wrestling with. What's the next step? How do we actually move from head knowledge to heart knowledge, from simply believing that God exists to believing in him? How do we move from just knowing about God to actually knowing him?
That's the question, isn't it? And the beautiful thing is the answer is simpler than we often make it.
Okay, I'm all ears.
First, it starts with honesty. Being real with God about who we are, where we're at, and what we're struggling with.
So no pretending we've got it all together.
Exactly. God already knows our hearts anyway, right?
Yeah.
He sees the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Okay, so honesty is step one. What's next?
Next is humility. Recognizing that we need God. We can't do this whole life thing on our own.
This is where I get tripped up. I like to be in control. Surrendering to someone else, even God, feels kind of scary.
I hear you. It's a natural human instinct to want to be independent. But the paradox is that true freedom comes from surrendering to God.
Okay, that's deep. I'll have to chew on that one. So honesty, humility. What else is in this mix?
Receptivity. Opening our hearts and minds to hear God's voice, to experience his presence in our lives.
But how do we do that? I mean, it's not like God's going to show up with a megaphone.
Like reading the Bible, which is his word to us. Spending time in prayer, talking to him, and listening for his guidance.
That makes sense. It's like any relationship, communication is key.
Exactly. And the more we communicate with God, the more we get to know him, the more we experience his love and his presence in our lives.
So it's not a one-time event like flipping a switch. It's an ongoing process of getting to know God and growing closer to him.
You nailed it. And here's the exciting part. As we draw closer to God, he begins to transform us from the inside out.
Wait, that's that new creation thing 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17 talks about?
That's the one. It's like getting a spiritual makeover. Our thoughts, our attitudes, our actions start to align more and more with God's heart.
Okay, but let's be real. Nobody's perfect. Does this mean we'll never mess up again?
Of course not. We're human. We're going to make mistakes. But the difference is when we're in a relationship with God, we have his grace to pick us back up, his forgiveness to cleanse us, and his power to help us live a life that reflects his love.
So it's not about being perfect. It's about being in process, always growing, always becoming more like Jesus.
Beautifully said. And that's what makes this whole journey of faith so incredible. It's an adventure of discovering God's love and letting it transform us into the people he created us to be.
Wow. This whole conversation has been mind-blowing. It's really challenged me to think about God and faith in a whole new way.
I'm so glad to hear that. And remember, this is just the beginning. There's so much more to explore and discover about God.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners? Especially for those teens who are wrestling with these big questions about God and faith.
I'd say the takeaway is this. Knowing God personally is not some far-off, unattainable concept. It's an invitation, open to anyone who's willing to take that first step of faith.
It's like saying, hey, God, I'm here. I want to know you. I'm willing to be honest, humble, receptive, and see where this journey takes me.
That's a perfect way to put it, and I guarantee you won't regret taking that step.
This wraps up our series, Does God Exist? It's been an amazing journey exploring this profound question together.
But even though our series is ending, we hope your journey of faith continues.
We encourage you to keep asking questions, keep seeking truth, and keep exploring this incredible possibility of knowing God personally.
And if you've enjoyed this deep dive into faith and thoughtful inquiry, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Rooted and Reasoned for more episodes.
We've got lots more exciting conversations coming your way, so stay tuned.
Until next time, keep those minds and hearts open and keep seeking.